Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Super Sports Central. Today, we're going to be going over my Week 2 NFL Power Rankings. So, usually when I do Power Rankings, I briefly recap last week's rankings and what those teams did in the previous week, although before the season started, I didn't have time to do Power Rankings, so we're just going to get right into things here for Week 2. And real quick, before we get into my Power Rankings, I only do the top 10, because otherwise the video would take 10 years. But starting things off at number 10, I've got the Broncos. So I've got the Broncos at number 10. I would like to have them a little bit higher, but they didn't look great as they beat the Titans 20-12. Now, the Broncos offense didn't play their best game. Quarterback Bo Nix didn't look great throwing the ball, as he threw for 176 yards, a touchdown, and also had 3 turnovers, with 2 interceptions and a lost fumble. Now, the Broncos did run the ball effectively, with 151 yards on the ground, and they were led by rookie running back R.J. Harvey, who had 70 yards on just 6 carries. Then the defense for the Broncos, they were really good. They didn't allow a touchdown, and they held the Titans to 4 field goals, plus they allowed just 133 total yards and racked up 6 sacks. But it wasn't the prettiest win for the Broncos. You definitely would have liked the offense to look a lot better, but the defense looked great, and the Broncos, a win is a win, and I've got them at number 10. Coming in at number 9, I've got the Lions. So the Lions, they check in at number 9 after they lost to the Packers 27-13, and this was not a good game for the Lions. Their offense scored just 13 points in their first game without Ben Johnson, and that is definitely concerning. And this is also the lowest point total for the Lions since Week 7 of the 2022 season, where they scored just 6 points. But the offense definitely wasn't great. Jared Goff was okay throwing the ball for 225 yards, a touchdown, and interception, although the Lions could not run the ball, just 46 yards, and averaged 2.1 yards per carry. Then the defense for the Lions also wasn't great, allowing 27 points and 5.7 yards per play. But not a good game for the Lions to start the season. I definitely think they'll be fine because they went to a really good team on the road, and I'm not ready to give up on them just yet. I mean, yes, they did lose both their coordinators and didn't look great, but it was one game. They're still one of the most talented teams in the NFL, but I do have the Lions falling to number 9. Coming in at number 8, I've got the Chargers. So the Chargers, they check in at number 8 after they beat the Chiefs by a score of 27-21 in Brazil. And this was a good game for the Chargers. Their offense looked really good, and Justin Herbert had a great game, as he threw for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns, and also ran for 32 yards, including a 19-yard run to seal the game. Then receiver Quentin Johnston also remembered how to catch, and he actually had 5 catches for 72 yards and a touchdown. Now, the run game for the Chargers wasn't too impressive, with just 3.6 yards per attempt, but they were okay with 90 yards. Then the defense for the Chargers, they were pretty solid, allowing 21 points and getting 3 sacks. But this was a very good performance for the Chargers in Brazil. They beat a division rival, and I've got the Chargers at number 8. 7th, I've got the Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers are at number 7 after they beat the Falcons by a score of 23-20. Although this was a game for the Buccaneers they very well could have lost, but they were able to escape with the win after the Falcons missed a game-tying field goal as time expired. But the offense looked good for the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield threw 3 touchdowns, and rookie receiver Emeka Egbuka had a great debut, as he caught 4 passes for 67 yards and 2 touchdowns, including the game winner. Now, the defense for the Buccaneers could have been a little bit better, but they were still good enough, and the Buccaneers, they come in at number 7. 6th, I've got the Commanders. So the Commanders are at number 6 after they dominated the Giants 21-6. And this was a good game for the Commanders. Now, they were playing the Giants, but they still played pretty well. Offensively for the Commanders, they looked good. Jaden Daniels threw for 233 yards and a touchdown, while also running for 68 yards. And Deebo Samuel had his best game in a while, as in his Commanders debut, he had 7 catches for 77 yards, and also had a 19-yard rushing touchdown. He looked really good in his debut. Then on the defensive side of things for the Commanders, they looked really good, only allowing 6 points and 3.7 yards per play. But this was a good game for the Commanders. I've got them at number 6. Getting into the top 5, at number 5, I've got the Chiefs. So the Chiefs, they check in at number 5 after they lost to the Chargers by a score of 27-21 in Brazil. And the Chiefs, they didn't look great. They weren't terrible, but they definitely didn't play their best game. On the offensive side of things, Patrick Mahomes threw for 258 yards and a touchdown, plus he had 57 yards on the ground and another rushing touchdown. Although outside of Mahomes, the Chiefs, they didn't really run the ball too effectively, as they had just 41 yards, not including the Mahomes scrambles. Now, the receiver position for the Chiefs becomes a little bit more of a question than it already was after Xavier Worthy left the game with a shoulder injury, although Hollywood Brown did have a nice game with 10 catches for 99 yards. Now, the defense for the Chiefs didn't play that well. They were awful against the pass, allowing over 300 yards, and they allowed 6.4 yards per play. But after a loss to the Chargers, I've got the Chiefs at number 5. I couldn't understand if you want to have them maybe at 6 or 7, but I do have the Chiefs at number 5. 4, I have the Ravens. The Ravens, they're at number 4, and they're the highest ranked team that lost in week 1. But the Ravens, they looked really good on Sunday until they didn't. The offense was great and put up 40 points. Lamar Jackson had 3 touchdowns, and Derrick Henry had a big game, running for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns. And wide receiver Zay Flowers was also great, as he had 7 catches for 143 yards and got in the end zone. Now, the defense for the Ravens wasn't good, especially in the fourth quarter. But they were playing pretty well in the first 3 quarters, having allowed 19 points to that point in the game. But then the fourth quarter rolled around for the Ravens, and they allowed 22 points in the final quarter, and allowed the Bills to score on 4 of their final 5 drives. But this is another blown lead for the Ravens, and that is a common theme for them over the past few seasons. But they're still one of the best teams in the NFL, but they can't keep losing games like this. I've got the Ravens at number 4. Third, I've got the Packers. So the Packers, they check in at number 3 after they dominated the Lions 27-13. And this was a great game for the Packers. Their offense looked really good with 27 points, and Jordan Love played well, throwing for 188 yards and 2 scores. Now the run game wasn't great, which is 78 yards, although they didn't stop the offense from finding success. Now where the Packers looked really good was on the defensive side of things. They held a good Lions offense just 13 points, and didn't allow a touchdown until there was 55 seconds left in the game. This was a great win for the Packers over a division rival, and I've got the Packers at number 3. Second, I've got the Eagles. So I've got the Eagles at number 2. I know some people are going to want to have them at number 1, and I wouldn't hate it, but I do have the Eagles at 2. But they beat the Cowboys 24-20 in the season opener. And they were pretty good. Their offense was solid with 24 points, although 21 of them came in the first half, although I do think the weather delay definitely impacted them. But Jalen Hurts had a very Jalen Hurts-like game where he didn't do much as a passer, just 152 yards, although he played fairly well running the ball with 62 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And the Eagles as a whole ran the ball well with 158 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then the defense for the Eagles shockingly did not look good. They allowed 20 points all in the first half, and again, I think the weather delay really impacted both offenses. And the Eagles defense is actually really lucky that CeeDee Lamb forgot how to catch in the second half, because if he remembered how to catch, the Cowboys might have won this game. But the Eagles, not a great game, not terrible. They were able to get the win, and a win is a win, so I do have the Eagles at number 2. And first, I've got the Bills. So I've got the Bills at number 1 after their crazy comeback over the Ravens, winning 41-40. And this was a great game for the Bills. The offense was great with 41 points, and Josh Allen was insane, as he finished the game with 394 passing yards and 4 total touchdowns. 2 passing and 2 rushing. And Josh Allen in the fourth quarter, he was even more insane. As in the fourth quarter alone, he had 251 passing yards, and 3 of his 4 touchdowns came in the final quarter. Now, outside of Josh Allen, receiver Keon Coleman really stepped up and had a good game, as he had 8 catches for 112 yards and a score. Now, the defense for the Bills was pretty awful for the most part, and they couldn't stop the Ravens at all, especially on the ground, for the first 3 quarters. But the defense, they stepped up when it mattered most. They forced a fumble and got 2 3-and-outs to end the game, and after a wild comeback for the Bills, I've got them at number 1. But those are my Week 2 NFL Power Rankings. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn notifications. I do my best to put as often as possible, and I will see you next video.